Good day, YouTube. It's the 14th of January, 2018. And this morning, Sunday morning, working on the 1976 Ford F-250 camper special, getting ready to go in for paint. Got a bunch of stuff done yesterday. Did a video on that, posted it last night. This morning, I got a hot wire, that coily red one, hooked up to the carburetor from a wire that existed under the hood that comes on with the ignition switch that goes to the electric choke. I threw that carburetor on there this summer. Literally it says, you know, just put it on and go, and that's essentially what I did. I didn't do anything with it. I was in such a hurry to get this thing running so I could drive it without exploding with the old carburetor that was on it, that I didn't even take time to deal with the choke. So I had to finish that this morning. Whilst I was under the hood, I noticed that. So that's a battery isolator. This would not be a factory installed. That was something somebody hasn't put in. The problem is, besides me holding the light and a camera in one hand, is that connection is loose. And it's burning up. Glad I seen it. I wasn't having any particular trouble that I know about, like charging batteries or anything, but it was only minutes away from a problem. So I am not a big fan of the electronic battery isolators. They typically go bad. This one I'm not saying went bad and caused that problem. It might just have been a bad connection. But what it is doing is putting a terrible strain on my new alternator, because to get across a high resistance situation, i.e. bad connection, that alternator's going to have to put out a lot more power to get across that. And that's not good. But I don't like them. I like constant duty solenoids. This is essentially a 150 amp switch that I'll probably tap that same wire right there that I used to feed the carburetor, and it will essentially turn that switch on. So you bring your battery, basically connects your battery to like your trailer battery or camper battery, and you bring to the center post right there that hot wire, which turns that switch on. The case of this thing is grounded, so it basically pulls the coil in, makes a connection from the left post to the right post. So it'll attach basically your truck battery to your trailer battery, or your truck battery to your auxiliary battery, truck battery to your camper battery, whatever you hook the other side of the post up to. Every time you turn the ignition switch on, click, it goes in. And these almost never fail. You have to really abuse them to make them fail. I don't think I've ever seen a battery isolator that lasted for any real length of time. People still put them in. I typically take them out. Obviously just got this truck a couple years ago. It's been a slow restoration process. I've just recently put the camper on it and used it one time. But my vintage camper at this point, I don't even have a connection between the truck and the camper battery. So this thing hasn't ever needed to function, but I will replace that today with the constant duty solenoid. Now, do not confuse a constant duty solenoid with a starter solenoid. I'm trying to light that up for you. That is a Ford starter solenoid. These are designed to, when you turn the key to the start position, it connects the left side to the right side. Not any different than the constant duty solenoid, but the coil in that is not designed to run for more than 30 seconds to a minute or so. In my earlier days, I tried to use a starter solenoid like a constant duty solenoid, and after a few minutes of being in the energized position, it burned up. It burnt the coil up. They're not designed to do that. You have to go to a constant duty solenoid, and if you need to switch more than the 150 amps that these are typically rated for, it's not uncommon to parallel these. So you would, basically tie posts together for however many of these you want to parallel, 2 or 3 of them. from this post to the next one to the next one, and then tie these posts together, and then tie your battery to your load, or battery to battery, or whatever you like to do. So that's the 911 on constant duty solenoids. So let's get that thing out of there. So it's basically got 3 wires coming, one from the alternator, and then to this battery, and then one to the auxiliary battery. In this case, there is a little circuit breaker down there. You see it? There it is. A little circuit breaker. And then it goes out to the trailer connector or camper connection, and it protects that wire from here to there. So I'm going to get that thing taken out. I have disconnected the negative post to the battery. There it is. You don't want to try that hot because those wires go straight to the alternator and straight to the battery. They are hot and they will burn them up. So let's get that out of there, and I'll check back with you in a little bit. Well, we got the constant duty solenoid in place, and I thought I'd show you a few things before I button it up. So I went ahead and replaced that connector that it plugs into the factory harness. I have a wire going to my electric choke, and I have a wire coming around here, landing here on the solenoid that will basically turn this solenoid on or connect the batteries together as soon as the ignition switch is turned on. The wire from this side of the solenoid goes to the 2 wires that came up from the alternator. One goes to the battery and one goes to the alternator. They were split so they could be isolated. They are now tied back together. I wanted to point out this particular type of connection is actually a really good connection. If you're not gonna, if you have to splice them, you got basically 3 good crimp connectors, and then all of the crimp connectors are bolted together. It's very common. Industrial motors and things like that are terminated like this. It allows those motors to be changed out without stripping the wires shorter and shorter each time. So that's actually a pretty decent connection if you ever get in a situation to make a connection like that. And then that circuit breaker down here, if I can find it with my light, there we go. I replaced the wire and came back up to the other side of the solenoid. So basically it's going to turn my trailer battery connection on when I turn on the ignition switch. So I need to tape up this bolt connection and then finish tightening things up, and then hook up my battery terminal, and then we'll fire this up, put a meter on it, and give it a test. So let me get to tightening and taping, and I'll get back to you in just a second. Okay, we got everything buttoned up, taped up, tightened up, replaced the bolts on the battery cables, and here's just a little shop tip. If you buy these bolts from auto parts stores, whatever, they get like $2 a piece. If you buy the whole terminal that clamps on, which goes bad in a year or two, they get like $1.50. So the bolts, they get more money for the bolts. I was actually buying clamps and throwing the clamp away just for the bolt. And I thought, why don't I just go online? We're going to make a quick walk over here. Go online and buy a bunch of bolts with the square head and some stainless steel nuts and just have them. So I've left the drawers out here. But anyway, so I just keep these like 1.5 long square-headed 5/16 bolts, and then a bunch of stainless steel 5/16 nuts in my little bolt bin, so that I can always change out those bolts. Sometimes you'll live with the clamps or cables for a good length of time if you can just keep decent bolts in them. So anyway, little shop tip. So got everything done. We're time to fire it up. Got the bolt meter stuck in there if the connection will stay, and make sure that we're charging good. I wonder if I've had other issues because I haven't noticed that isolator burning up. But are you going to focus, camera? Focus. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, fire in the hole. And this will test my choke too. Cold start. Check the other side. We're all checked out. So that is how to change out a old battery isolator to a constant duty solenoid. Remember, constant duty solenoid. And my choke works good. So far, successful day. I think we'll call an end to this video. Thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing. You can pick up a constant duty solenoid, Napa, or any other auto parts store. They're not even expensive. They're in like the $20 range, 15 to 25 bucks, somewhere in there. Remember, don't use a starter solenoid. They are not designed to be on all the time. Okay, so I feel good about my wiring now. I'm sure glad I noticed that, because I've been running around and it wasn't going to last much longer. Maybe not even another day. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Here's a little bonus footage because I got to come clean on something. This is my little stash of old seal beam headlights. You know, and these aren't even halogens. So if you're like restoring a vintage car and you want the right look, you might want just regular old seal beam headlights in it. So when I see these things, I grab them. I'm just kind of a hoarder that way. Also have just like head or brake lights, clearance lights, all the different kinds of bulbs that you might see. I've picked these up at auctions and yard sales and whatever. So when I get vehicles that need light bulbs, I typically have them. I might even have more than the auto parts stores might have. What I bought online, LEDs and relays and things and boxes full of miscellaneous bulbs and flashers and alternating flashers and electronic flashers and old school flashers and starter solenoids and there's $1 for a headlight switch that I didn't even know I had. I bought a new one for the step van and a miscellaneous box. I have a lot of this stuff, and I show you this because the constant duty solenoid that I just put in came out of my hoard here, my stash of miscellaneous automotive electronic devices. We locked my cabinet, and it actually didn't work. The solenoid pulled in, but it didn't transfer voltage across, and that's the one that I showed in the video when I was testing it. I decided to call it a success, knowing that I would then have to throw this in the garbage because it didn't work. So I ended up running down to the auto parts store, getting a new one, And the only reason I made this bonus part of the video, as I mentioned, these are like 20, 25 bucks, something like that, which is what I've paid for these for a long time. $40 now. In fact, it took over 40 bucks for a new, and it took longer to run a few blocks to the auto parts store to get it than it did to swap it out. And then this one works fine. It actually transfers the voltage across the solenoid. So finally did get this wrapped up, and I thought I would just show this little piece of footage in there to come clean on the video that it actually didn't work as it was supposed to. It was wired properly, but it just didn't transfer voltage from one battery to the other. But it does now because I had to replace it. Anyway, there you go. Thanks guys for watching, and we'll get you on the next one. Thanks.